welcome to another episode of Navigating Life with Navigating Life with Viwe. I come not alone. I stand in front of you, not alone. I sit in front of you, not alone. And I converse, certainly not alone. I am here yet again with the one, the only, Viwe too. Welcome.
It's good to be here.
How was that for your intro and for your welcome?
It was beautiful.
Was it?
Was beautiful.
Okay.
I felt like you could go on and on.
like I'm a pro,
the
right?
Intro,
right?
This is to be an intro. It becomes the main act itself.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that.
It's good to be here this afternoon, and I shall continue navigating life with Viwe.
Yes. So today we are going to be talking about something that's quite close to my heart.
Yes.
And I also know it is to you too. We're going to be talking about parenting.
Sure.
What is it that I know about parenting and where do I know it from?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it something that one can say maybe it's a taught science in terms of, you know what I mean, how one goes through a schooling system to learn how to parent, or is it something that somehow we learn from those who parented us? You know, I think for me, the journey was quite wild. You know, it took me to so many places. And I thought, you know what, just for us to kick it off, maybe let me also just get from you.
Yeah.
What is parenting for you? And I mean, for you as a man, right? For you as somebody's son. And for you, in fact, let me first say, for you as an African man, because dare I say, parenting is not the same across cultures, but I think it's also underlined by one purpose. One might say it is grounded on basic love and a sense of purpose and responsibility. But before I even go further and wild with it, what does parenting mean to you?
Parenting for me means a lived experience of presence.
Okay.
To the ones
Just say that again.
A lived experience of presence.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
To the ones that are your charges, your responsibility.
Wow.
Right? And for me, it has got no gender connotations. That's parenting, unisex. Are you there?
So you are a living
Are you
presence.
present? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Presence, not necessarily in the physical form.
Okay. Oh.
You can be present, distant from your family. Some people grew up in an era of migrant workers. Like a father would be in the mines of Johannesburg.
I see.
And people would be, his entire family would be left here at home. And females were not generally working in the past.
Okay.
For people of all cultures
I
and creed.
understand. Yes.
Right? Because the understanding was that men must go hunting. All right? However, things have changed, but the principles have remained the same.
I just want you to take, before you move on to how things have changed, because I'm still stuck on your definition of parenting.
Yes, sure.
And how it's a living presence, right? And I think for me, in my very limited understanding, and I honestly want you to take me on this journey with you, that if you are saying living presence, for me, it means there's the physical presence in it, right? But you are saying that drawing from our history and how parenting has evolved, you know, it came from a place where one did not need to physically be present, whether at mine or wherever else they are for work purposes. Am I capturing what you're saying? So
you're capturing what I'm saying.
Yeah.
However, I just wanted to complete it.
Okay, please do.
It has got its pros and cons. You can be present.
Okay.
While distant. You can be distant while present.
Okay.
But sometimes, no matter how good the intentions are, all right, not being physically present has got its disadvantages, okay? Because you must watch your kids grow. You must hear them learn their first word. I mean, they must ask you questions. You must have those teachable moments with them.
I see.
Right. Fortunately, we live in an era of technology where you can video call your children. You can speak to them over the phone, if you like, on a day-to-day basis.
I see.
You can make an effort. So it's an effort.
I see.
Presence is an effort.
I see.
If you speak to the person on the other side, they feel that you want to be with them. You're interested in what they're doing. and you're calling them out whenever you get reports that they had not been up to any good.
I see.
So when you are present in the physical, this is where now you can actually watch them when they pulling their faces, when you're barking instructions at them, when you are actually handing over that ice cream.
I see. As a reward, so to speak.
Not necessarily as a reward, as a gesture of pouring and loving and giving.
I see.
When they are being appreciative.
I see.
And they say, thank you, Daddy, with a sparkly smile on their faces. So it gives you a personal satisfaction that you have actually managed to provide for somebody you like.
Okay.
Right.
It's quite interesting.
Being a parent.
It's quite interesting. And I think I will take it from what you were saying earlier on to say this is how parenting used to happen, Yeah. And there has been a shift in some regard to how we parent today.
Yes.
And I actually want to just get into how do you view that shift? What is the fundamental, what's so key behind that shift? Is it I don't know, how do you see that?
I've got so much respect for my parents.
I see.
Their flaws included.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. When my father's car pulled in at home,
okay,
we had to make sure that everything is cleared.
Okay.
That every chaos has been now put right together. All right, we have to stand in attention because Daddy's in the house.
I see.
No more fun.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. The master of the house is
he
home.
He was more like the serious-minded, stern kind of a
disciplinarian mode,
and
so
we
to
could
speak.
get away with most things. Not that my mom was easygoing, but my mom was more, it was easy to reach out to her, all right? And then with the strictness lied with Daddy.
I see.
Right? With the father, because he's the voice of authority.
I see.
I
see.
So on.
I see.
So you have to make sure that whatever is going to moan about, you actually have to clear it out of the way so that your lives can be easier. But now things have changed. You see that, is it something that you want your kids to have towards you? Without...
You mean the fear that Daddy is now home
Absolutely.
and everything must be sorted out?
I want my kids to look forward to me coming home.
I see.
All right? I want them, when I open the gates, they should come running to me. It should not be, oh, okay, we enjoy Daddy's presence, but when Daddy's here, we're not having fun.
I see.
All right?
I see.
I don't want to be their playmate per se.
But do you want to be their friend?
I can be their friend, but I don't have to stay their friend. I can play with them, but I don't have to stay down if we're wrestling.
All right,
you
I see.
understand? There has to be boundaries. When they see me, they have to see also a voice of authority, but a voice of authority that can actually be flexible enough to actually stoop lower to their level.
I see.
Not expecting them to rise up to mine all the time.
I see. You see, from what you're saying, what I'm picking up is that you grew up in a home where I think parenting as a concept was balanced. Right?
It was balanced.
It was balanced in that you had the mother who was more of a nurturer, somebody that, Mom, I've got this now, come sort it out for me. Yeah. And you had the father whom was a disciplinarian, so to speak, who had to make sure that, well, you can be nurtured, but life goes like this, and there's an order to life, and you have to make sure that you know what I mean? You do your things in a certain way for you to be an acceptable member of this family. You have to do certain things. You know what I mean? I might be harsh in my saying acceptable, but apha endlini, apha ekhaya senza olu hlobo. Izitya ziyahlanjwa.
This is the
standard, so to speak. And so when you're saying now things have changed, right? Remember, I'm moving from saying. It seems what you are saying is that you grew up in a well-balanced parenting space where the mother played a certain role and the father played a different role. And I'm saying now you're saying you may be pointing out to the fact that parenting as a concept has changed. In fact, even for you as a man, where you no longer want your kids to now go hide away when you're coming home.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to say in terms of that balance, are you now saying, as parents, the need for the disciplinarian has diminished to exist, or is actually diminishing to exist, and that fathers may not only want to be seen as disciplinarians, but also want to nurture and be seen as loving parents? Is that the shift you are?
I think the softer side of fathers, there is a strong contentment or contention that it needs to be given space. All right. We don't have to see fathers as hardliners.
I see.
All right.
I see.
We have to see fathers as people we can joke with, as people. You know, my old man was a very funny man. All right.
I see.
But if you continued reminding him of the jokes he told the previous day, he would be quick to actually say, "All right, it was the corruption pagat."
I see, because that was not his.
Pretty much quickly to say, "Look, the timing is not for jokes.
It's not for that now.
We were in that chapter yesterday.
We're not
but
there
it's a
today.
Different day altogether.
Yes, yes.
You know? So it's even when that happens, children must be seen and not heard. You know, if it's not a good time for certain experimentation and behavior, you have to find a way of actually saying it and broaching it in a way that will not hurt the feelings of the young ones.
I see.
Because they might be scared to actually come and joke around with you again. They need to be told that you're welcome to do these things, but you need to respect the fact that daddy is either working, studying, or, doing something else serious.
I see. I find it quite interesting, this whole notion of the shift that you're referring to. And I wonder if it's just limited to parenting. I think that might be something to actually explore in other episodes, just to see whether this heart-stunned man that raised us in our generation, so to speak, who was a disciplinarian. I didn't necessarily grow up in that environment. I think mine was quite organic. I think when it came to my parents, it was not gender role specific, I think my dad was quite evolved in his parenting. And my mother, he was quite evolved in the sense that he was more of a nurturer than mom was.
Oh wow!
For some reason, and I think it was quite important. And I think it's quite important to note why that was important for them and how it turned out for me as well. Because I think my mother, for the time that she was growing up in, or that she was coming into adulthood in, it was the space where women were seen in a certain way.
Yes.
So for her to thrive in the space that she was in, she developed a bit of a hardcore personality. I don't know if she was born with it, but what I witnessed was this woman who was just not apologetic in her alphaness, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
But also, dad was also just like, I'll just let her go run and things like, where are my kids? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So for me, it was not as traditional as it is for other families. Was it always okay for me that it was like that? I remember a certain point in my life thinking, why are we not normal? Why is my...
Really?
Why? No.
So it was that conspicuous? It was for me. So it wasn't an easy as, I just grew up in a different environment. No. For me, at a certain point in my life as well, it was like, why are we not normal? Why is our dad not the disciplinarian? Why is it our mother who's chasing us in So it's something that you missed.
At the time.
Wow.
No, at the time. That's why I'm saying it's always, I think for me, everything always draws down to your perception.
Yeah.
My perception at the time, looking at neighbors, looking at other families, mine was weird. Mine had a mother who had a senior.
It was different.
In fact, even in terms of how, mom was senior to my dad, and they were in the same department of education. But so my dynamics were not too traditional, so to speak, right? And which is why I take such a keen interest in how parenting is for you now, because I know I had questions for mine, but I think in my evolution and I then became aware of how actually I might have been very lucky.
There's a bit of a leitmotif in our conversations that there is nothing new under the sun.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think these dynamics you are discussing, it may seem like it's things that existed in a specific generation and era. They continue to exist even now.
Yes.
The laws have changed, for instance. There's no more corporal punishment. at schools, corporal punishment was actually supplemented by a rod at home. You know, you'd get a stick and you'd get beaten. So it was normal then. But the laws have changed because it sort of like exceeded its authority and it became abuse. All right, some people just went overboard.
I see.
Right
Yeah.
now, you've had that intervention.
Yeah.
From the legislation to say there shall not be corporal punishment. I can't remember the exact year
I
that
know.
she was cut off.
Yeah.
But it must have been, I think, around
I remember
1989,
the time.
1990.
I remember the time, but I
Yes,
just
it
can't
was
say which
actually-
year as well too.
No, actually in 1994, I did get Baxla properly in high school, but that's not what we're discussing today.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying you've got to do more explaining yourself as a parent to a child, which is not something that had been traditionally accepted in the past.
But I just where you at, without cutting you,
Right.
Who sets these standards? Who says now? Because I actually hope this leads us to the question that I would like to have answered, right? And I'll pose the questions just now because we speak of parenting as an evolving phenomenon, right? We'll say at a certain point, parenting was driven by a whole lot of discipline that had to be instilled. And then the second part would be in the absence of that discipline, where there's a certain era where men had to parent away from home. Then the role of the man moved from just being a disciplinarian to more of a provider solely for the family. You know, that was his parenting, so to speak. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Right. And now we're in an era where also just men just want more than just playing into these roles, you know, wanting to be more present in their kids' life. And in fact, at least some of them, because there's still we can't deny that society is still struggling with that balance because there's still men who are not present in their kids' lives, sadly, for whatever reason, which, it's still something we battle with in society. But I hope that at some point I will be able to ask you this question, and maybe this is the time to say, okay, all things being fair and proper,
Right.
why do we need to parent? And I'm asking that because the parenting might seem as a common thing, but it's not for everybody. Some of us are chosen to parent, and some of us are not chosen to parent, right? And if we were to look at it and say, look, ultimately, if I were to say the purpose of me being given this child is this, right? If you had to define why you are given, what's your child's name again? First child.
I've got Swelihle.
Let's use Swelihle as an example.
Yeah. So
God decides that I'm going to give Mawe an opportunity to parent. Right. And I'm not saying, for all purposes and intents, let's make this clarity. I'm not by any way suggesting that those that are not given in any way are lacking in any regard. But I'm just saying it is an accepted truth that not all of us get the opportunity to do so. Yeah. And I'm saying if you were to imagine the reason why you are given that opportunity, for you, what would that reason be? Why are you given an opportunity to parent?
It's not an easy one. We might think it's got an obvious answer, but by virtue of me having birthed a child, all right, biologically it's something that is possible. But there is a long-term view in it, all right, where I am adult enough, I've grown enough, I've experienced life enough to give somebody else an armory, sharing in my experiences and guiding them so that they make the right decisions in life. They are allowed to make their own mistakes in life, but they need to have certain temperaments and certain disciplines and certain routines that are going to help shape a character in them.
Is it?
All
okay.
right. So obviously that requires an intentional involvement in the child because you teach them more than just principles. You teach them how to speak as well. All right. You teach them what words are acceptable to say. Even though it's okay to know all of them, you can't use all of them. You know what I mean?
I understand. And what
this
I like...
is how they need to speak. You know, the ethics, the conduct, that they need to know that they do not only belong to the family nucleus or nucleus family, they also belong to the world. So they need to get into the discipline and intentionality of being governed by a set of rules, first at home, at school, in the society, in the communities within which they live. So it's good to actually obey all the ideals.
I understand.
There is structure in every society. You know, there's school, there's home, there's school, there's church. All right, and then there's society. Whatever religious beliefs one follows, they also play a role as well in instructing the children to become the best they can be.
I love it. The reason I say I love it is not because I love it for the sake of me loving it, what you say.
Right, yes.
I am loving
I
your
understand.
response to the question, and that at the center and at the core of your response, it is the child.
Yes.
So you are saying to me that you think the whole reason of being given an opportunity to parent is for you to be able to impart whatever knowledge you've been able to pick up for survival on this earth space.
Yeah.
And also to just say maybe how do you then get along, or how do you then contribute to the project of humanity with other humans, you know,
I like
cooperating with other humans.
But you've just given so much power to the words right now. Yeah.
However, you know, and this is whether we look at the education, I mean, at the ideal of teaching or educating, is that because ultimately, whether you're looking in terms of the school system or not, there's a certain outcome that you want, right?
Absolutely.
Which you attach a value to, right? I know that currently in the province, we're celebrating plus 85% pass mark. And that's an outcome of a system, right, that was saying, for all intents of education this year, we are going to push so that we get to that certain mark, that target. And I think likewise with our kids. However, my point of interest at this point is now there's a moment of reflection. Yeah, like 85% that's put out there. Now you've got this child that you've taken through everything.
Right.
You have given every opportunity to, and you've done. Now the reflection or how you reflect on the outcome is not satisfactory. Say you have this child that turns out not as you imagined they would turn out, right? And how does that go with your parenting? How do you attach that, and how do you interact with that feedback, which is contrary to how you planned it at the onset? Bearing in mind that my interest or my is in your previous response was that you had a child-centered approach. So you're saying your purpose of parenting and your response was all centered around the progress and so on of the child. But I'm saying now at the end of it all, now you've got this child, say he's 21. He has turned out to be far in every respect possible from whatever that you imagined having a son would be like. Tell me how that goes for you.
One thing I yearn for in my own personality is that I allow my kids to be the best they can be. I do not want to create other minima wetus, all right? I can instill the values that I see and know best into their lives, all right? And give them the freedom of choice to become to choose the careers that they want to be after. Because I am not creating little stooges and little replicas of myself, even though my kids have a striking resemblance of me.
Okay.
But I do not expect their characters to turn out exactly the way they do, because I know what it's like to aspire to be like my dad, someone who's known in society. My dad was a school principal, by the way.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to digress a bit. And I admired him so much that I wanted to be a teacher. All right. I wanted to be a musician like him. I wanted to dress like him. You know, teachers with blazers, flannel pants, tie.
At least I never wanted to be one.
Absolutely. So I wanted to be all things that my dad was. All right. He was a good exemplar, you know, on all things. How can I say, above board? All right. He was a straight-laced individual. I think I did sort of like replicate and duplicate some of his characteristics and temperaments, all right? But I realized that I take myself too seriously because my dad takes himself too seriously.
I see.
And I am much more fun than what my dad could be. All right?
Well, I know the fun you. I don't know your dad, so
yeah.
I don't wanna put him at a disadvantage here. So
Absolutely. I could never attend a comedy show with my dad. I love comedy shows.
Oh.
He would get offended. You understand?
So you take
because
all of that
it's a culture thing.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. I realized that, look, even the things that he detested, I detested all of a sudden, even though I knew very well deep down that I actually
don't mind
to certain things.
Yeah.
I don't mind these things. I have a better understanding that I'm not wise. By any means, I'm not saying I'm wiser than him, but I have a better understanding of some of the things because I've become more curious about them instead of just dismissing them at face value.
I see.
All right. So when my kids don't turn out like me, it is absolutely perfect. It is
I love
fun.
it. I love
I shall
it.
have succeeded as a parent. However, whatever I teach them, the universe will have an opportunity to teach them as well. So what I teach them versus what they are being taught by the universe, it should dovetail. They should know if the universe is selling them short.
Yeah.
Instead
Which
of
is
me
impossible.
missing an opportunity.
Which is almost...
So I need to be as honest as possible because we have very stuck questions that are coming from them about sexuality. The other day, my daughter asked me, what does it mean to be horny? I'm sorry, viewers. These are the real life conversations.
Nothing could have prepared me for that question too, guys.
Look, I do apologize for all. You know, we haven't. We will try and censor ourselves. We'll try and fix the language and stuff.
Will we?
But I was not prepared for that question, by the way.
I was not prepared for that.
So whatever you're feeling at home, I felt it first.
I'm feeling it, yeah.
All right. So I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength.
Okay. Ish.
So I was shocked. It's not something I would have asked my dad. But I do not want to actually close off those conversations. I still want to be the first port of call whenever they are at the crossroads in life. I don't want them to refer to somebody else.
I understand.
So that for that t-shirt moment. So my answer was, it's not a day-to-day language. You know very well that you're not allowed to watch programs that have an age restriction. So if you got it from TV, you've been watching a wrong program. So up until you tell me, so I negotiated, I bargained with them. Up until, so I said to her, we have a deal. I know what it means, and I will tell you what it means. All right? But it's not clean language.
Okay. And it's not for everyday use.
But for me to tell you, you ought to tell me what program you were watching. Because I can tell you now, you were not watching the right program if you got that from TV. You just confirmed you got it from TV. I don't know
if that's not going to deter her from asking you next time, because she's going to be like, my goodness.
It's all in her head.
No, just imagine if a child says now, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, that, oh my goodness, if I go and ask my dad, do you understand? In that time, I could just easily go to Google and find out.
So
what then?
It was more like, Sweli, my girl, be in charge of your own development. All right? Okay. I will help you.
Okay.
I will help you as best as I can with the knowledge that I have. Okay. But we have a set of rules in the house, and I thought we had agreed that we do not watch
things that refer to things that are...
Yeah, and age restriction as well.
I see.
We watch family programs. All right.
I see.
But we know what kids get up to when the mom and the dad are not watching.
Okay.
All right. Now, to be fair, they can come ask me, but when they're asking me, they need to give me context and background, because I normally ask, okay, how do you want to use what about this word? They ask me a whole lot of words.
I hear you.
What they mean, and it's very difficult to explain an English word in English yet again. Just a side note.
We're happy to have that you have those conversations with your daughters. And I think in moving us forward in the conversation,
right?
And I do want us to move towards, because we've sort of spoken about parenting for the most part of this show,
yes,
in the traditional sense, right? And we all know that parenting in modern day has become very complex. I don't think it's something that is new.
It has.
We see a lot of homes that are being run where kids are growing in environments where there is only just a parent. And I mean, I do want us to take us on this whole trip that, I mean, if you look at how we as Black people used to be parented before, there used to be some sort of a group project. Growing up in one household. Then that sort of evolved where we were all just in our homes, where the dad's role started coming up strongly as a disciplinarian, unlike in the group projects where it would have been a grandfather looking after basically, So now father figures actually started coming out strongly in their defined role as disciplinarians and mothers as nurturers, fathers as providers, mothers as, sort of the home support and so on. Now we've also transitioned now into a space where you find that also it's not as traditional as it was, where mom is sort of the nurturer, the support at home. You've got, even in marriage situations, mothers that are alpha females at work,
right?
That are boss ladies, that are running the show,
leadership
right?
roles. Yeah.
And you've got fathers that maybe are not as traditionally defined as well, that are into arts and more present at home, and so on. But before we just get into that, I wanted to say, and the reason why I was asking you all these questions, because I know for some time you felt like, hey, why so many questions and why are they directed towards you?
I enjoyed them, by the way.
I'm glad you did. It takes me to a book that I read, and I can't even remember, for crying out loud, what book it was.
Right.
But it paints this story, and do bear with me, I will not be long. That, it sort of follows what one would call the unfolding of life, right?
Okay.
In that at the moment of conception, right, something shifts. Life,
right.
it comes from this whole thing that for life to happen, something must move. So something shifts at that level.
Yes.
And then there's this whole thing that starts in the female body, which is the whole forming of this being. And in this book, what they talk about is that for the first 9 months of this development of this child,
the fetus,
nobody has control over where the nose grows. Yeah. Whether the nose grows in the face or in the foot or in the back, So the order of life unfolds on its own without any interference from us. Right.
Totally independent process.
Totally independent, totally flowy and totally perfect process. As you can see it happens, it knows where the brain must go. Yeah. And I mean, you'll have your gynecologist and your obstetricians confirming, oh yes, the heart is beating. But behind that whole science, there's something that gets activated and that unfolds without any human. And it points out to a certain point in time where now we are birthing this child. Right. And it says at that point, then human interactions almost informs the process that's been unfolding, and says from here onwards, we take over. And in that takeover, we assume, if it is my child, I assume a new role now as a parent. And if I am not clear, which is why I was asking all these questions, of how do you see this role in the bigger scheme of things? Because life on its own, and I always say, has the self-addiction to itself. Yeah. This is why you will think parenting, this is the amazing thing about how a 14-year-old whom has not even gone through any planning, who does not know, who might answer the question differently from you as to why are you chosen to parent at 14, when they haven't even gotten their life compass correct, in terms of navigating their lives, And the whole reason I'm asking, and I hope I settle at some point, without sounding like I'm everywhere, is that for me, my conviction is that life continues whether I'm here or not. Yes. Right? And my role in any human being is never to assume superiority, whether by age, the fact that I've been on this earth space longer, never assume, because I've seen, and I'm going to say the second one, never assume intellect and anything superior to this new being that's here on earth. And I think for me, at the core of that is assuming that, look, your only responsibility, which God has set you here for you to parent. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I seem Christian. I'm actually not a practicing Christian. But whoever, whether we call it God or the universe, but whatever entrusts you with this responsibility, your responsibility is not bigger than the universe's responsibility over that child. Right. So you may teach the child how to eat, how to sit, how to survive,
child of the universe.
How to survive the jungle, yes.
Yeah.
How to survive the jungle. But in terms of why that child is here, their purpose on earth, that's something that falls outside you. And I've seen how other people hurt in terms of how their kids end up different from what they had imagined. And for me, it's always like such a thing.
Should I tell them?
And hence, you should tell them. You should tell them it's not your work to begin with. No. You do not start it. And you are just brought in the middle of it to carry it into here, into this earth space, to teach it to Viwe. You don't poop and eat it, you know? I mean, that's a basic survival skill. You don't
like your take.
You don't shit and eat, right? Mm-hmm. You don't, you know what I mean? Okay, you must do that part. But I mean, you don't do that, right? But at the core of it is that the universe has got its own purpose. And I've seen a poor guy. I mean, how do they claim anything about birthing and Elon Musk? I'm not saying that's the case, you know, for Elon Musk. I'm just saying I've seen how whatever intervention one might put on a child just gets multiplied in ways that even that person wasn't capable of imagining, you know?
You are more of an enabler.
That's your role.
Than somebody with a red tape.
Yes.
All right.
And you do not own.
Absolutely.
That child.
You do not own that child. If you recall, earlier on in our conversation, we spoke about, you spoke about the universe, and you can expand it further.
Yeah.
People are governed by a different set of standards, right?
Yeah.
You've got religious people, you've got traditional people, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Without delving much into that, the fact that you have to use a set of standards, those are not your standards.
Yeah.
All right. It's standards that you believe want to pursue a life that is higher than you.
Yeah.
All right. This is where now you share those insights with your kids. All right. To say, all right, in life, you don't have to listen only to your mom and dad. There are plenty other moms and dads outside.
Do we still have that? Sorry to cut you. I was raised. I was raised where you were told the mother from next door can discipline you.
Yes.
Now we don't even want our kids to speak to strangers.
No, because things like abuse was uncommon then. Even if it existed, it was never a threat. It was never a scourge.
I see.
Parents were all well-meaning. We still have parents who are well-meaning. If I observe the way you parent your children, for instance, I can trust you with 2 or 3 hours of my daughters.
I see.
All right? Because I've sort of like aligned to your values. All right? I've observed your values, and I reached a point of comfortability. Allow me to say this, Viwe. I am highly impressed with the efforts that parents are making.
All parents
raising their children, all right? I'm not going to be specific. In raising their kids.
Okay. You see, I'm being political.
They are shifting way beyond what they already know.
Okay.
However, I'm not sure if we are doing very well in the outcome. I know you said something that this process is independent of us. But the way kids are turning out, it is concerning. Quite frankly, it puts our parenting and our core values into question.
Does it?
Yes. It does.
Okay, before I promise.
Despite us, moving away and shifting from the practices that we now call ancient.
Raised. Yeah.
All right. We've got modern practices backed by an era of democracy.
Yeah.
All right. Where we are saying dictatorship has got no role in society. All right? Now, the converse of that, nguvula's buqe, and it has become very difficult to stop a neighbor's child from committing an error, from committing crime or any other miscreant.
I don't know if I can totally agree with you, and I can place the issues of society and on parents alone. But we can come back. We'll come back. We have promised to speak about the alternative parenting.
Alternative.
And I like it because I also think in your situation, you're not parenting in the traditional sense where you're going home to a wife and your kids. right? We've got quite commonly now that we've got parents that don't live together. And thank God, praise be, bless those parents that are able to make it work and parent together whilst not together. And there's also now, and I like that, and I like how I don't know. I mean, I could never praise them enough. I would love for every parent who is single and trying to navigate that parenting with the other parent who is not in the physical presence of the kids. I mean, I'd love for all of them to be put in one place and be told how to do it, because we need more of that in society. I think we've got issues where other homes are run and other kids are raised by single mothers, whatever the circumstances, you know. And but I do want to actually just pick your brain on that part, you know. What do you think needs to be done, you know, to make sure that we balance it out? I mean, every child deserves a fair chance, you know, deserves to be mothered and be fathered. But in a space where we do not have, there's no cooperation, you know, between, which is always said. I mean, what would you then suggest happens in that space? And maybe, I don't know how it is in your own personal life.
Look, social integration is very important. We do not operate in servitude to the universe. We do not operate in servitude to the global community, local and global community. So the little persons you are raising in your house, you're preparing them for the world to come. All right. So how you influence them must have a lot to do with how they will behave in the world that is to come.
I see.
There will come a time when they will have to use judgment. All right. There will come a time where they will have to use deference, means trusting other people than their parents.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do not want your children to go into a space that is not safe for them.
I see.
All right. It was easier in the past to be sent to a store which is, half a kilometer away. You could run there.
Which you can't anymore.
You can't anymore.
You can't.
Because of a criminal element.
You still do in other
society.
areas, but I mean.
Right. Yes. Now we find that kids are not we almost recluse. I mean, we are here in a space, but we have to make sure that the gate is locked, because there might be an intrusion.
I know.
You know, we have
Which
become too guarded.
Walls are
so
up.
I'm not really
fences.
blaming it on the society per se or on individuals per se. We've got to do what's necessary to protect what's our own. But that sort of like insulates us from one another. So there's no longer that integration. But if we all agreed, you know, you can only understand now why we've got street committees, we've got community policing fora, we've got all other structures and organizations in various forms. You've got political parties, you've got schools, you've got NGOs, you've got all sorts of institutions and organizations. That is a complete society. If we can agree on a single set of standards, not to say people are not multifaceted, but if we can agree that certain standards are unacceptable, they are harmful to the society, we can rebuild our fiber and we can be safe again.
I see. We are having fun, right? But I also like that we are actually having an honest conversation with you guys. Do subscribe and like us. And do suggest any other topics that you'd like us to talk about. We are here for that.
Forward to your comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a wrap.